Today on Zola Levitt Presents.
I'm Kirsten Hart. This is Times of the Signs on Zola Levitt Presents.
And I am David Hart. The question today is the rise of Islamic State a sign of his second coming?
Learn more about this religion of submission. Stay tuned.
Shalom and welcome to our program. I'm Miles Weiss.
And I'm Catherine Weiss, and we want to welcome you to our series, Times of the Signs. You know, we're in the perplexity of nations.
Yes, we are, but we're not in perplexity, and those who are following the Lord are not. Today's program is called The Sword of Allah, and we want to speak about the rise of jihad in the world.
Well, you think about Christianity, and it's about peace and love, and even Judaism is all about
life.
Life, and acts of kindness, acts of goodness, good deeds.
Yes.
But you think of the sword of Allah, and you're thinking of people's heads being cut off, which is what is happening today.
Yes.
It is so sad. The Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims are being attacked by this religion because it's a religion of oppression and submission.
Yes, that's right. Many people think, and we've been told by our leaders, that Islam means peace. It does not mean peace, it means submission. It means the ultimate goal in Islam is for the entire planet to be under Sharia law, Islamic law. But it doesn't come by jihad. That only happens when in a given nation or a given area they feel strong enough to overtake violently. They begin with a cultural infiltration called dawah, and that's what we're seeing in the world. I spoke with Avi Lipkin, our friend and expert on Islam, about the different factions within Islam. Let's go to that interview now.
The 1400-year war started with the fourth Caliph, Ali. You had three caliphs before him. The names are not important, but they're Abu Bakr, Omar, and Othman. They were the lieutenants who marched into battle with Muhammad. They were his close confidants. The fourth Caliph, Ali, was actually the flesh and blood of the Prophet Muhammad, so-called prophet. And so Ali, who was a cousin of Muhammad, he was the son of Abu Talib. This is very important. Abu Talib was the uncle who raised Muhammad, who was an orphan. So Ali and Muhammad were actually like brothers. And Ali marries the daughter, Fatima, of the Prophet Muhammad, and they start a dynasty. You've heard of the name Hussein, like Mubarak Hussein Obama. Yes. Hussein is a Muslim name. It's one of the sons of Ali and Fatima, the grandchildren of Muhammad. Hassan, Hussein, these were all children of many others. And they formed a dynasty, and so the followers of the flesh and blood dynasty decided to wipe out the followers of the first three caliphs, and that's how it started. Okay. This is the key. Muhammad, before his death, had a dream. And his dream was that there would be two camps in Islam, and that only one was going to heaven. But he didn't know how it was all going to come out. So, if you think that the followers of the first three caliphs are going to allow the followers of the fourth caliph to chop their heads off, a civil war started. That civil war has been going on for 1400 years. The Sunnis today, who are the followers of the first three caliphs, are about 85% of the Islamic world. Right. The Shiites are about 15%. But the Shiites are 50-50 with the Sunnis in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, where the oil is. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and of course Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi. So this is the perfect storm.
It is a rainy day in Jericho. Jericho, you may know it from the Bible as the place that the Israelites crossed over and conquered immediately, which is why Yasser Arafat demanded that Jericho be given to the Palestinian Liberation Organization as his first place of headquarters in order to rewrite the current history and try to undo the facts of the history of the Bible. Something poignant about being here on a gloomy day, because I'm thinking about 9/11/2001 when President George Bush said that Islam was a religion of peace and set in motion a politically correct dynamic that we're dealing with today, where we're still struggling to call things as they are, to call good evil and evil good. And the fact is that the role of Islam in history has always been that of a conquering ideology that has taken over lands and peoples and subjected them as second-class citizens who either can pay taxes, convert, leave, or die. And we're seeing that arise all over the world right now, especially in this part of the world in the Middle East. Think about this. The credo of the stronger horses that the Islamic people are looking to, meaning ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, the leadership that is being funded mostly by Iran, but some from other places as well. They believe Allah is our objective, the Prophet Muhammad our leader, the Koran is our law, jihad is our way, and the greatest thing we can do is die. Dying is our highest hope in the cause of jihad. That is not a religion of peace. I pray for the arising of the moderate Muslims to stand against the current jihad, but it's very few and far between. It's been interesting this past year to see Jordan rise up, to see Egypt rise up, even Saudi Arabia behind the scenes with Israel, as they're making new alliances, recognizing the barbarism that's coming out of this ideology that insists that it's their way or no way. One of the main tenets of Islam is that Allah is God and he has no son, and that is a different gospel, no matter how you look at it. No question that John 3:16 says, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes on him might have eternal life. And no question in Proverbs 30, verse 4, who is this God and what is his son's name? There is no question about the Trinity, the reality of what we understand as believers in Yeshua. And it does not do us any good to misinterpret that cry that goes out when people are being slaughtered. Allahu Akbar. It is not that Allah is great, God is great. It is that he is greater than the gods that are being served by those who are being slaughtered. So today, we're here outside of a major mosque in a major city to bring the warning about jihad, to call you to prayer, to call you to stand with Israel, with Western civilization, with the persecuted church around the world. This is that hour. We need to recognize where we are in time as we look to the hope of his coming.
Do you wonder about your future as a believer in the Messiah? Our founder, Zola Levitt, wrote a booklet that tells us what lies ahead. Glory, the future of the believers. Inside, Zola explains the coming rapture, our time in heaven, the kingdom on earth, and then eternity. Find out what God has prepared for those that love him. Call 1-800-WONDERS or go to levitt.com.
I've heard a painfully ironic statement that Jewish and Christian martyrs say, I will die for what I believe. And Muslim martyrs will say, you will die for what I believe. And that is the ironic and very clear difference between a conquering ideology in the form of a religion and those religions that try to serve humanity. Judaism, Christianity, try to serve the greater good. And this intense jihadist work is spreading throughout the world, trying to take over every land and people group. it's been sort of a rote understanding that this is a religion of monotheism, and there's the same name, Allah, Jehovah. Allah and our God are exactly the same, but that is not true. The name Allah comes from one of the many gods that was worshipped in the desert. He used the name of the moon god. In fact, the crescent and the star that you see throughout the symbolism of Islam has a great connection to the Baal worship of history, to the worship of the mother-son cult, to the worship of that which is not of Jehovah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are different. Allah is not the same as Jehovah. Now, in colloquial language, the average person may say in Arabic, Allah, to mean God, and mean it somewhat innocently. But if you look at the character, the purpose, and the writings related to those two personages, they are very different. Some people believe that the God of Islam is the same as the God of Israel. Could you just give us a brief explanation of the difference between Allah and Jehovah?
Yeah, and this is an issue, and it's actually got a name these days called Chrislam, where Christianity and Islam is trying to find common ground and connect at the hip. Right. And it's like trying to mix oil with water and putting a square peg into a round hole. It just won't fit. Right. Islam does not believe, Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet, number 1 tenet of their 5 pillars of faith. Right. And they believe that Jesus, generally speaking, is a prophet. They believe in Jesus. Right. They call him Isa, but only as a prophet, not as a son of God. Right. Allah has no sons, it says in the Quran. Very important. It also says they deny the Trinity in the Quran. Say not Trinity, Allah has no son, there's no Holy Spirit involved in that. Right. Surah 551, I believe it is, says, take no Jew or a Christian as a friend. They are friends of each other. Allah does not bless the unjust. Yes. So when you really dig into the core essentials of Islam, it is anti-Judeo-Christian. And it is not the same God. The God of the Jews, the God of the Christians is Jehovah. This is clearly Allah, and that's just a summary of the differences.
No, that's great. I think that we need to remind people of that because we are fed so much disinformation. In order to smooth over and have an ecumenical view of life and feel good, we sometimes avoid the facts. And the fact is that the Quran is a globalist ideology whose main thrust is to dominate the planet.
That's it. They want to subrogate the planet to Allah, and that's their goal. They'll do it peacefully if they can, but they'll do it by force if they have to, and that's the danger.
The issue is that the jihadists are simply true believers of Islam.
Thank you.
They are committed to establishing the caliphate, which is the establishment of Islam globally.
Yes.
They mean exactly what they say.
Yes.
But I think in the West there's a disconnect. The human mind sometimes can't handle existential threats.
Yes.
And I think that explains in part why too many political leaders in the West don't seem to step up to the plate in opposing this jihadist mentality. There's a tendency to want to say, well, it's not as bad as it appears, when in fact it is, and probably worse.
The buzzword Chrislam.
Right.
We know that there's been lots of controversy in both directions about that, and some of it's been inflated, the controversy's been overblown, but how serious, I understand it's part of the context that you're bringing, but how serious of a directed movement is that right now?
I'll put it a different way.
Okay.
Okay, I have a Mennonite background. Even within the Mennonite community, which has been considered largely a conservative, theologically sound movement over the generations, has shifted to the point of saying, oh, well, Allah, as the name of God, must be the same God as the God we serve. And so there's literally hand-holding. One example is one particular Mennonite organization works extensively with the Khomeini Institute in Iran, which was Ahmadinejad's hardline Islamic clerical institute. Right. And they engage in peace studies together and exchanges of professors and academics, and they hold joint conferences together, have been doing so for a number of years. Yes. So there is a real sense here of Christians, even what we would consider conservative Christians, already embracing some of these ideas and causing a lot of division. It causes a lot of conflict, even at the grassroots level, because now I'm talking to people who are going, well, I thought Jesus was the only way. Well, Jesus is the only way, period.
Allah is about submission, conquering, and the house of war, which is everyone who doesn't believe, and the house of peace, which is Islam only. Jehovah is about the bride, the son, the ability and the desire that none should perish, but all should come to everlasting life. In Exodus 3:15, God says through Moses, I will put my name forever with this people, in this place, in this land. Why is there so much contention on the Temple Mount? Why is there such a desire to keep Islam there in such strength? Because it is God's place. You know, the name Jehovah is mentioned 9,000 times in the Bible. It is not mentioned once in the Koran. We're talking about two different personages. Remember, when you think of the God of Israel, think about the God of love, the God of life, the God of light, the one who is reaching out, leaving the 99 to find the one lost sheep, coming for the sheep of the house of Israel, and also opening the gospel to the entire world, including our Muslim friends. They are welcome to come into the light that is Jesus Christ, and that is our hope. Coming to you from Jericho, our hope is in Yeshua.
Hi, you know, a good question to ask yourself might be, where else can you find solid Bible teaching regarding prophecy for these last days? Well, Zola Levitt Ministries has been doing exactly that for more than 35 years and will continue with your support. Your gifts of financial support is what enables us to do this. We want to remind you there's 3 ways: online, through the mail, or just give us a phone call. And thank you.
We are so blessed to have so many experts come on this program and share their study of the Scripture, their knowledge of the end times. Miles, these are wonderful friends of ours, and we thank you for your gifts of funds that help us to bring you these interviews.
It's really true. This is especially in this series, we've been able to have a real team of experts to bring to you, and we're grateful to be able to do that. Let's go back to my interview with Avi Lipkin. It was over time, over history, when they would come and have clashes with the West. Jefferson invented the Marines because of the Muslim pirates. There's a history of this clash forever. Would they join together, Sunni and Shia, to fight them, or would it be one or the other fighting against Western?
I think that the hatred between the Shiites and Sunnis is such a great hatred, and there's no ending to it. Right. So what we see happening in the future, and the future is now, is that the international jihad is planning for the annihilation of the Jews everywhere in the world. Yes. Wherever you have Jewish communities in the US and Canada, it's all in my 6 books, I'm working on my 7th book now. Wherever you have Jewish communities, the Muslims come to live surrounding them. The Muslims catalog who the Jews are. The Muslims catalog who the Christians are, who love Israel, love the Jews, and the Messianics, and all these other groups that are...
You believe that's happening right now in America?
I have no doubt about it.
In Islam, lying to someone who is not a Muslim is a virtue. The fact is that they are an enemy. They're not worthy of the truth that you hold. It says in the Quran that Allah is the greatest deceiver. And so to mimic that, especially in what they consider the whole, let's say the world of Islam versus the world of non-Islam, the world of the sword versus the world of Islam, is to put you in a position you're always in jihad, you're always in war, therefore you never speak the truth, even to a fellow Muslim in some cases. I mean, if deceiving promotes a greater agenda or prevents shame or loss of face, which is the highest virtue. And so this takes place constantly. There's no problem with the facts, because facts are something that is completely controlled by Islam. So if you say something, for instance, in debates about Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus, say we have all these extra biblical accounts in Roman and other sources. It doesn't matter. Quran says. So if the Quran says, that supersedes any other fact on the ground.
I don't think the West fully understands not only the history of Islam, but also the future and their desire. Can you speak to our audience about what you see with Islam?
Miles, I've been living in the Islamic world for the last 23 years. People had better wake up. Chuck Hagel, the former Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, They spoke to the issue, and because of that, Hagel was fired by the White House.
Yes, he was.
This is the most dangerous thing to happen in all of history as far as America is concerned. Islamic State under al-Baghdadi has a desire to set up a caliphate, a worldwide kingdom. Calls himself self-appointed Caliph, the spiritual leader. He's doing everything, and the man is brilliant. Strategy is his #1 expertise. They are capturing Christians in the area where they're in control. They're beheading the adults. They're burning the children alive. Anybody that does something as horrific, barbaric as that, you've got to realize it's a force to be dealt with, and nobody's dealing with him. Our administration has, well, okay, we won't even call them radical Islamists. Right. You've got to name the enemy if you're going to deal with them. And they're spreading. Our CIA says, about 30,000 of them. Well, the people on the ground here are saying maybe 200,000 of them. So they're expanding, they're taking property, they're setting up that caliphate area. Saudi Arabia is scared to death of them because they threaten to go into Saudi Arabia and go to Mecca and Medina. And then, of course, the third most holy site for Islam is Jerusalem. They want to come, they want all three of these capitals, and they're moving. They're at Israel's northern border, they're at Israel's southern border, they're at Israel's eastern border. They've surrounded Israel. Israel's much concerned about. In fact, I've never seen Israel so eager to work alongside King Abdullah in Jordan.
It's amazing.
Because he knows what's going on. He said this could be World War III in operation today. And the Prime Minister of Israel said, we'll come along, we'll join with you, we'll help you in the fight. We've got to shut down Islamic State and the Islamic radicalism in our world today.
President Obama, your policy against the Islamic State has brought us once again to kill an American citizens.
For decades, we have been telling people about the threat of jihad and the arising of a radical fascist Islamic movement. In the last few years, it seems that it's slowly dawning on the West. I think about our friends on the Orthodox side, Avi Lipkin awakening the churches, and on the Christian side, Walid Shabat, a former PLO terrorist himself, saying this is real, this is coming, this is happening. And now there's still some dancing around going on as people in the West are reluctant to understand that it is a completely different culture, completely different paradigm and worldview, which from the beginning has been one of a conquering ideology.
Yeah, my heart breaks for the Arab people and for all people that would come under the subjection of this Islamic threat. You know, Islam worships the moon god, whereas we worship the creator of heaven and earth. And we have to remember that we do not draw back, but we stand firm and we stand in faith. I just have to be clear again and again that these two religions are not the same. Allah is not the same as Jehovah. Even in the 5 pillars of Islam, it says that God has no son. And in 1 John 4, it talks about that any spirit that does not confess that God, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of the Antichrist. And also in the book of Revelations, it talks about the throne and those who have gone before us, who have been beheaded for their faith. Brothers and sisters, we are witnessing this today. We just saw Egyptian brothers give their life for Yeshua as they were beheaded, and they said, we will not relent, that you are our Messiah and our King.
Yes, it's so amazing that the West, leadership in the West, is reluctant to call things as they are, reluctant to say Islamic extremists, Islamic terror, reluctant to say that it's Jews being killed in Europe and it's Christians being killed in the Middle East. But that is what is happening. Even the beheading comes from the Koran, and the beheading is spoken of in Revelation, isn't it?
Right, right. So brothers and sisters, let us stand fast in faith, believing that our prayers and our voices have impact in these days and in these hours.
Yes, we need to remember, and it's hard sometimes, that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Primarily, the war is in the heavenlies, and we can affect much through prayer and fasting, especially for the persecuted church around the world. But I have to say, we're also sure that it's going to come to a physical confrontation as well, because at the end of the age, Yeshua will come and settle it by vanquishing all those that come against Israel and against his people. So let's watch and pray as we see the days unfold, and keep looking up. Your redemption is coming. You know, when we think about the Muslim world and the rising of jihad, we need to always remember that we have been made ministers of reconciliation. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting in 17 and following, speaks about that we've been reconciled to God, and because of that, we're reconciled to one another. And that is the heartbeat of our ministry. That is the heartbeat of what we're looking for in this world, is to see all people, no matter what their background, come to know the love of God.
Absolutely. You know, we are committed to all people finding God's love. We recently just hosted a gathering in our congregation in the Bay Area talking about the reconciliation between not only Jews and Christians, but Muslims coming to faith. After they come to faith, they actually have to come through a healing process, like our good friend Khalida. You know, she got saved, but she was still harboring hurts from her past life. And I think all of us need a little bit of God's hand to clean us up, deliver us, and to set us free from pain.
Yeah, we're saved, we're being saved, and we will be saved. We're sort of in this process of sanctification. And so that was what was going on with Khalida. She had to come through the veil of hatred that she learned growing up in the Middle East. And she's done that spectacularly, and we're able to minister together. And that's our reach. It's always that none should perish, but all come to everlasting life.
I learned something new on the program. I think both of us learned that. I never knew that Muslims in many countries surround a Jewish community in order to conquer them and bring them under submission. I just never knew that.
Yep. The good news is, though, that Yeshua came that we might have life and have it more abundantly.
That is the good news we have to share today.
Yes. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter, is free and full of insightful articles and news commentary from a messianic perspective. Visit levitt.com to find our newsletter, along with current and past programs, our television schedule, and much more. Don't forget to order this week's resource by calling 1-800-WONDERS, or you can purchase it from our catalog at levitt.com. Your donations to Zola Levitt Ministries help these organizations bless Israel. Please remember, Zola Levitt Ministries depends on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you. This has been a paid program by Zola Levitt Ministries.